I will now ask our Vice Chancellor to pronounce on the congregation.
Ladies and gentlemen, I just want to greet all of you and to say we are congregating in this University of South Africa for an exciting ceremony of the investiture of the new chancellor of the university. Former President Thabo Mbeki. Thank you.
Thank you. You may be seated. I will now invite our Chairperson of Council, Sakis Melane, to come and make us feel at home and welcome us. Chairperson of Council.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, Program Director, thank you for the introduction. I know that I'll have to follow protocol, but with the number of guests that are here today, I will only be able to mention a few. Indulge me in my capacity as the chairman of UNISA to particularly acknowledge a few people. The first being the Minister of Higher Education, Dr. Blade Zimanze, Cabinet Ministers present here today. Among those, I count the Minister of Science and Technology, Minister Naledi Pandor, the Minister of Human Settlement and Chancellor of the Mangosuthu University of Technology, Minister Sisulu, and allow me as well to welcome all the former cabinet ministers who are present today. I won't mention all of them, but I've seen, among others, the former Minister of Finance, Trevor Manuel, President Thabo Mbeki, UNISA's Chancellor-elect, and his wife, Mrs. Zanele Mbeki, UNISA's former Chancellor, Judge Bernard Ngwebe, and his wife, UNISA Council members present here, former UNISA Council members present here, including the former Chair of Council, Dr. Matthew Posa, the Principal and Vice Chancellor, Professor Mandla Makanya and Mrs. Makanya, and the entire executive management, all chancellors of other universities present today, and vice-chancellors of other universities. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I can't believe that a year has passed since I stood at this podium in 2016 to address you. I can only say, having spent an extremely embarrassing evening watching the State of the Nation address on TV some time ago, that I'm relieved today that I'm not having such a tough audience. Annually, the academic opening is a morning of celebration as we recognize achievements, recommit ourselves to being a university, and in UNISA's case, to being a university shaping futures in the service of humanity. That requires a great deal more than just being an ordinary structure serving up higher education degrees. This year's academic opening is a little later than usual for two reasons. Firstly, many of you will be aware of a slight disruption that UNISA experienced at the end of January, which I'm pleased to report that it ended with a mutually responsible outcome. The second reason is that the 2017 academic opening is made more special by the fact that it is an enhanced event, combined with the inauguration of UNISA's new chancellor. As we planned the function, centrally to the decision was the consideration of inclusivity. The Chancellor is central to the university, yet many UNISA staff never get the opportunity to participate in any function with the Chancellor. In an attempt to change this, we decided that it would be singularly appropriate that the installation of this Chancellor, with his tradition of servant leadership and mantra of people first, takes place in the presence of as many UNISA staff as possible. This morning, we will therefore commence with our 2017 academic opening, and it will be followed by the inauguration of the second Chancellor in the history of the new merged UNISA. For that reason, that big chair on the stage still stands empty. Program Director, ladies and gentlemen, as I welcome you today to the 2017 academic opening of UNISA, I want to emphasize my gratitude to every one of you who took the time to participate in this important event in the annual calendar. I've already introduced the core values of inclusivity, and this morning I greet you all in the spirit of unity and oneness, conscious of the turbulence and protest of the past months. However, I believe that we have set our compass in the right direction, focusing on UNISA, and for that, I want to first thank the student for the responsible approach to the academic year and allowing the exams to proceed during 2016 and the early part of 2017. Secondly, all staff members for their continued support, their drive of excellently. And thirdly, I want to thank the leadership for their role in managing the university, especially my colleagues at Council for their professional steerage of the university. It has been a collective effort of pride and overall goodwill that has brought us to where we are today. I also want to
that amount be confirmed
and guidance throughout these difficult times. And last but by no means the least, I wish to thank the Minister of Finance, Mr. Pravin Gordhan, for acknowledging the desperate need for additional funding for higher education and making it a reality in his 2017 budget. While this is not a promise for free higher education, it is a progressive realization of the right to higher education, which is precisely where our constitutions guide us. Like most South African, I'm keenly alert to all that is happening in the space of higher education, both and particularly what is happening in the university sector. And it is not just South African universities that are experiencing the turmoil of change. I found that this is a global phenomenon. Allow me, Program Director, to touch on a few things that are particularly important for UNISA. Firstly, the hashtag fees must fall debates are repeated all over the world in different manifestations, as the cost of higher education makes it prohibited to the general masses. UNISA is in the fortunate position of having some reserves and sound investment, both of which are supported by maintaining a relatively large student base. For this reason, UNISA has been able to retain its position of having the lowest fee structure in the South African higher education sector and still providing a quality academic product. In 2017, UNISA has made available more than 90 million for student bursaries at both undergraduate level and postgraduate level. We see this as part of our continued vision to shape futures and grow South Africa. My reading and analysis tell me that globally student debt is in the trillions, and the university will continue to find innovative ways to lessen the burden. Coupled with this funding challenge, my assessment of higher education systems describes a picture where students register at the university, but the revolving door is spinning ever faster. and they eventually drop out before earning their certification. It is indeed a sad consideration, considering the socio-economic challenges out there. And the university will continue to work towards making sure that such a situation is improved. Secondly, the push for fully online education on the continent, where bandwidth and connectivity are still in dispute, must give us reason of concern. And I believe it requires honest and critical engagement. We must be wary of adopting strategies and platforms of the West that are not appropriate for the African contextual realities. Distance education is critical to increase access and massification of education as inspired by the Sustainable Development Goals. And online technology is the catalyst of bringing geographical boundaries. But how it is optimally implemented is in a manner that does not discriminate and it does not exclude those whom it proposes to serve is a challenge, and we must find answers. I can only imagine that the researchers must be spending much time on these questions, and I look forward to seeing the results and their findings implemented to make UNISA's open distance e-learning model more effective. My experience, again, and engagement in the world of work tells the unfortunate story for a large proportion of university graduates being under and even unprepared for entry-level position in the job market. The alignment of graduates with the in-demands job and meeting the needs of employers who want new recruits to hit the ground running is the reality of the job market and, again, the future of education. Against this bleak background, I know that something must be done, and it needs to be done quickly. Now, I'm not suggesting that nothing is being done and that change isn't happening, but I sometimes wonder whether our academic deliberations and speculative reflections, we are not missing a simpler point of truth and reality. I know that UNISA's new chancellor-elect knows what I mean, as he had much the same message some years ago when he was a president. He stressed, many of our own people here in the country do not ask about computers, telephone, and television sets. They ask, when will we get the road to our village? As far as education is concerned, the simple truth is that, of course, we need to increase access, but our success and throughput rates must grow in tandem with the growing numbers of students entering the university. Now, I'm not advocating for a pass-one, pass-all scenario, but I believe that students must be appropriately guided and properly supported to complete what they started in the minimum time. I know that UNISA has many professors, and I would like to see them not just in the research journals, but I also want to see them applying their wisdom to the teaching of the first-year students. That's where we need them, and that's where we need them to make a difference. Another perk when we talk about success is quality. This has been a critical discussion at the World Economic Forum in Davos. And the debate post the World Economic Forum has been started by the Vice Chancellor of Harvard University with the question, what is the intersection of technology, quality, especially in the distance education space? My immediate reaction is that, as this debate rages among the academic gurus, should we be sitting back and waiting for the answers, or waiting for others to determine our trajectory? Or should we be working on spelling out our own framework? The problem with Africa is that sometimes we take Ubuntu too far. Instead of aggressively opening the doors, we wait for someone else to walk through first, and then we play catch-up. UNISA needs to develop its own framework for quality in the environment of distance education that will be globally acceptable. This will be a wonderful chance to test the ideas when the ICD conducts its regional workshops towards global quality framework for distance education. I'm aware that the Minister of Higher Education and Training is placing a significant focus on transformation, and 2017 is the year when he wants to see change. All universities have been called upon to develop their transformation plans again. But again, I'm going to stress that the plan is secondary, but primary to the success is the content of the plan. We have heard the expression sometimes which says the devil lies in the detail. But again, the innovation lies in the detail. As one ponders the issues and accounts for organizational transformation, one realizes that there is no straight path from beginning to end. Transformation has many hidden secrets and various indicators, and the success will depend on the ability to interpret and respond to the true needs of many stakeholders. Therefore, synergy, integration, holistic understanding will be key elements of the success of UNISA's transformation agenda. I'm happy that last year the UNISA Council took a decision that this year they need to have, when UNISA needs to hold the transformation in Indaba, and I've been told that the transformation in Indaba will be held in March. We look forward to seeing some practical and implementation plans that comes from that workshop. We've started well, and I congratulate the university on its language policy. When I spoke to you last year, there was still a considerable agreement between the university and other stakeholders regarding the language policy. It is therefore pleasing to be able to congratulate the university on finalizing its language policy and achieving material consensus on the content thereof. I can state without fear of contradiction that UNISA is undoubtedly a university apart when it comes to strategic and operational planning. Its strategic planning, led by the Vice-Chancellor, is one of its noteworthy success over the years. However, I want to caution that whilst there can be no effective execution without strategy, equally, there can be no efficient strategy without execution. When we start measuring success based on added value, accountability, and outcomes, we know that our strategy is working. With this in mind, I want to raise what I regard as a fundamental question: what is the role and purpose of a university? In November 2016, I sat at the ICD President Summit, and I listened to speaker after speaker talk about university as a space of care and hope, learning as a social experience. And one of our own UNISA colleagues recount the example of the UNISA professor who unequivocally stated, "My role is to give my students discipline and specific knowledge. It is not my job to teach them to be good people." So I repeat my question: what is the real purpose of the university? Iconic thought leader, Dr. Martin Luther King, reminds us the function of education is to teach one to think intensively and to think critically. Intelligence and character, that is the true goal of education. What am I saying on this subject, and what is UNISA saying on this subject? We need to clearly define our character, because only then we'll be able to develop a shared understanding of what we are, what we want, where we want to go, and how do we propose getting there. As long as our understanding of what is the role of the university remains fragmented, it will continue to realize discordant outcomes. Another takeaway for public higher education institutions, and I don't think UNISA is in any way exempt, is that I firmly believe that in time, TVET colleges will gain their rightful space in the post-school system. And we should also not forget about the community colleges that the minister introduced in the white paper on post-school education and training. This initiative, coupled with imminent recognition of private universities, will demand that the traditional public university, and UNISA is not exempted from that, will need to start fighting for their survival. Students are simply going to have more options and become more increasingly savvy as they shop for a degree. When this happens, quality, service, and product excellency, innovation and creativity on one hand, and on the other hand, respect for each other and the institution as a whole, and an acknowledgement of the role that we all have to play in making UNISA great will be critical. UNISA is the African university shaping futures in the service of humanity. UNISANS needs to understand or need to stand up and become excited about the university, its history, its legacy, and the number of graduates it produced. However, that said, UNISA cannot rest on its laurels, and how it responds to the challenge of 21st century will be the mark for its future. The journey into the 21st century calls for innovation, thought leadership, academic proficiency, and I know that all of these positive attributes sits within the confines of this great university. I'm not alone in this belief of the importance of working together. Research confirms that fragmented leadership, infighting, toxic and baseless competitiveness will never map a successful journey of excellence. As I close, Program Director, may I appeal to the university community that you focus your minds and be what a university is meant to be. Unleash your potential so that communities nationally, continentally, and globally will have to sit up and take note. Maintaining brand recognition and sustainability should be UNISA's drivers for the foreseeable future. To all UNISANS today, I want to wish you everything of the best for the 2017 academic year, and I hope you will accept all the challenges, and I hope you will debate these issues behind the scenes. I thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson of Council, for the welcome and reflection on higher education. Without any waste of time now, I'll call upon our Principal and Vice-Chancellor, Professor Mandla Makanya, to deliver the academic opening address, and he will remain on stage thereafter for the launch of the book. At that moment, he'll be joined by the author. Let's put our hands together for our Vice-Chancellor.
Thank you so much, Dr. Figeni, our Program Director. Let me just greet Your Excellency, Dr. Thabo Mbeki, Chancellor Designate and former President of the Republic of South Africa, and Mrs. Mbeki, our Minister of Higher Education and Training, Dr. Bonginkosi Blaine Zimande, Minister Naledi Pandor, Minister of Science and Technology, Minister Lindiwe Sisulu, Chancellor of Mangosuthu University of Technology, and Minister of Human Settlements, Your Excellencies, Ambassadors and High Commissioners present, Honorable Honorable Justice Dikgang Moseneke, Chancellor of the University of Witwatersrand, as well as former Deputy Chief Justice of the Republic of South Africa, Honorable Justice B.M. Webbe, former Chancellor of the University of South Africa, and the newly elected tax ombuds, and the retired Judge President of the North and South Gauteng High Courts, Mr. Saki Simelane, the Chairperson of the UNISA Council, and all the members of Council who are with us today, Mrs. Makanya, chancellors of all our universities present. It is exciting actually to mention that we have a number of chancellors who are with us here today. Professor Nkutlu, the Chancellor of the University of Pretoria, Chancellor of Walter Sisulu University, Umam Sisulu, Chancellor of the University of Fort Hare, Advocate Dumisa Nsebeza. We've got a number of chancellors who are with us here today, others are maybe missing. Dr. Matthews Posa, the former chairperson of the UNISA Council, and all the former members of council who are with us here today. Maxime Jean-Louis, the president of Contact North Universities in Canada, who serves with me in the International Council for Distance Education. Thank you for being here today. Vice chancellors from our sister universities who are with us here, from the University of Mpumalanga, Fort Hare, VETS, Northwest, and a number of universities whose vice chancellors I may not have seen this morning. Members of UNISA Executive and Extended Management, Professor Louis Mlamu, former registrar and author of the book Degrees of Excellence. We have in our midst Professor Nyameko Bani-Pichana, the former principal and vice chancellor of this university, and Mrs. Pichana. All the former vice chancellors of this university and the pro-vice chancellor who is with us here today. The chairperson of the Council for Education, Professor Thabo Mbeki, all leaders of our Chapter 9 institutions. I also want to mention that we have members of parliament who are with us here, and I want to greet all leaders of our government from the national, provincial, and local government, the former ministers, our own leaders of the student formation, the National Student Representative Council, as well as all the leaders of various student formations, leaders of our organized labor, representatives from various media houses present, all invited dignitaries present here today, distinguished members of the audience, good morning. Dumelang. Sanibonani. Goeiemôre. Absheng. Enda. Bonjour. I seem to have lost a lot of you by now. I greet you all on this very special day in the history of the University of South Africa. In the life and journey of any university, there are defining moments that mark its history, just as celestial objects align in the deep skies to mark the dawn of changing seasons. What we are witnessing today is one such special and historic occasion. We are hosting three important, distinct, and yet related events. The first is the academic opening of the academic year, in which we highlight our achievements and set the agenda for the year, as well as recognize individuals for their academic achievements. The second is the launch of the book Degrees of Excellence that profiles outstanding South African, continental, and global figures who have received honorary degrees from this university for the profound impact they have made in our society and on humanity in general, and we are excited to have many of them here today. The third one is that we are installing our new chancellor. Of great significance is the caliber and global stature of President Thabo Mbeki, a towering African intellectual who is assuming this role. And Mr. Chancellor-elect, I also want to greet the members of your family, Mr. Mbeki, who is with us here today, his better half, the members of the Mbeki family, Judge Murane, and all the members of the family, the members of the Thabo Mbeki Foundation, their CEO, who also is with us here. My address will therefore, ladies and gentlemen, depart from its conventional format on this important occasion, and I hope that the university community will pardon me on this one. As we meet in this auditorium, which has hosted many historic events over many decades, we are conscious of the gaze of an African intellectual giant of our 20th century, Professor Z.K. Matthews, after whom this auditorium is named. His granddaughter and our current Minister of Science and Technology, Minister Naledi Pandor, has also graced this occasion. Professor Matthews was instrumental in crafting one of South Africa's most important documents, the Freedom Charter, which has shaped the constitutional destiny of this country and influenced democracy on the continent. At this juncture, let me greet all the members of the ecclesiastical community, the bishops, the priests, and everyone else in that fraternity, leaders of the business community, and all the leaders in various parts of our communities, including the civil society. 100 years ago, South Africans had tragic news of the sinking of Mendi, in which over 600 black South African volunteers participated in the First World War that perished in the freezing waters of Europe. Also in 1917, South Africa will also receive a gift of life as the late president of the African National Congress, O.R. Tambo, was born in the village near Bizana. He became a political giant and a servant leader with a great heart. I can only imagine what he might have said about his protege, President Thabo Mbeki, today. I can only be left to ponder in the workshop of our minds. 40 years ago, in 1977, we also witnessed the naked cruelty of the apartheid regime when one of the intellectual giants of our liberation struggle, the late Steve Bantu Biko, died in a prison not far from here. He will have been 70 years this year. When the three universities, UNISA, Technical in Southern Africa, and Vista Distance Education Campus merged in 2004, a mega university was born, which now enrolls more than 350,000 students. But what matters most is not the size and reach of UNISA, but its intellectual and academic influence in shaping the futures of our graduates in the service of humanity. The installation of a chancellor always marks a new era in the life of the university. In our case, we are welcoming a leading intellectual who has defined the African agenda for the 21st century and who's been instrumental in crafting what has become known as the African Union and the new African Partnership of Africa's Development, and facilitated the UNISA's program to be a leading African university in the continent's development. We are the custodians of knowledge, but we are also pioneers of new ideas. Successful universities are dynamic, they are always transforming, they are always innovating, and always exploring new ways of knowing and new ways of being. Opening the 2017 academic year, therefore, represents another phase of our long history since 1873, including more than 70 years as a premier distance education university, which has alumni in excess of 700,000 in this country, across our continent and around the world. South African higher education has been beset by a wave of protests that has rocked its foundations in the last 2 years on a scale that has not been experienced since the advent of our democratic dispensation. The demands for a free education, dramatic transformation, and social justice are at the core of these uprisings. The key constituencies of universities have proactively created spaces for constructive engagement to define the futures, as our Minister of Higher Education and Training, Dr. Nzimande, has directed. Minister Nzimande has challenged us as university leaders to provide leadership in this era of change. My interactions with colleagues from across the world also indicates that challenges facing South African public universities are not unique. Elsewhere, difficult and complex questions about the role and purpose of universities are also being interrogated. Universities as centers of knowledge creation ought to be at the forefront of finding solutions to socio-political and environmental problems that threaten our existence. Equally important in higher education is the fact that it is higher education's introspection that we require about the human resources, thought leaders, and societal leaders that universities need to produce. UNISA has embarked on a profound transformation program a few years ago, and this, I'm pleased to say, has yielded some credible results. Current events simply heighten the sense of urgency. In 2014, UNISA Council approved our current strategy 2030 that our chairperson of council has made reference to. This strategy seeks to reposition this institution as the leading Africa-centered and Africa-focused university, which is globally competitive. UNISA is today host to the highest concentration of Africa-focused centers and programs. Annually, we host international conferences which focus on the decolonization of knowledge and on the social and academic transformation. UNISA changed its language policy in 2016 to create a meaningful space for and development of indigenous languages. We have also set up an institutional mechanism to review and transform our curricula across colleges. A forum has been established to ensure maximal participation in this process. This is designed to move university transformation beyond rhetoric and symbolism to concrete, implementable programs. And thank you, Minister, you are going to be witnessing this sooner rather than later. And I also want to mention at this time that we will therefore be focusing on the recommendations of the South African Human Rights Report on Transformation at Public Universities in order to articulate a clear plan which will draw on the policies, practices, and council-approved UNISA strategy for 2016-2020 to lead transformation in higher education. This means profiling our transformation goals, implementing our human resources recruitment and retrenchment policies, improving the academic performance of our students, giving substance to our revised language policy through its special unit, and inculcating multilingualism in our communication. We also need to respond to recommendations in the report related to curriculum and pedagogical transformation to achieve academic and social justice, as well as graduates in the context of a developing economy. Moreover, we need an urgent overhaul of our institutional culture to promote inclusivity and ethical governance. Perhaps more importantly, in the present crisis of higher education, we must face head-on the challenge of student funding and the allocation of financial resources within the institution. In leading change this year, 2017, we have therefore decided on the theme for the year, which is transforming UNISA, academic and social justice for development. And we have devised a program, seminars and roundtables which will open up debate and give direction and context to our transformation strategy and plan. In October 2013, UNISA signed a collaboration agreement with the African Union Commission, and we already have programs that are in place to realize objectives of the African Union Agenda 2063. Since 2011, as a university, we've provided training in the management of democratic elections in Africa. 39 countries have participated in this program. UNISA is one of the universities selected to host the Obama Nelson Mandela Young African Leadership Training Program. We are also collaborating with various government departments to advance our developmental state and our country's national goals. Moreover, UNISA has signed a collaboration agreement with the Africa Forum, which is an association of former heads of state and leaders on our continent. We have established a unique state-of-the-art nanoscience laboratory facility in our science and engineering campus in Johannesburg, thus demonstrating the wide range of advanced academic offerings of our comprehensive, open distance and e-learning university. The many other achievements and flagship programs is too long to be mentioned in this opening address. I therefore ask you to engage as constructively as possible in our mission, because if UNISA is to be properly transformed for a new era under President Mbeki's chancellorship, we have to work together. We have to find common solutions, and we need to locate ourselves in African ideas. We have to locate ourselves in African philosophies, and we have to locate ourselves in African contexts. We have to find a positive way forward for our lands so that the tens of thousands of students, staff, and alumni, as well as our donors and sponsors, not to mention the wider South African and continental community, which is eager to see us really becoming the African university shaping futures in the service of humanity, taking root. The time for talk is over. We have to live our vision. Today, we also recognize the achievements of our staff. Our successes should be celebrated without losing sight of higher goals. Our research record has been consistently impressive. UNISA's accredited publications increased by 53%, Minister, between 2011 and 2015. And the preliminary data, thank you. And Minister, the preliminary data for 2016 confirmed this upward trend. Since 2013, our research outputs have grown by more than 13% on an annual basis. This is extremely gratifying for a comprehensive university, and it makes us competitive even with research-intensive institutions. In 2016, UNISA awarded a total of 47,777 degrees, diplomas, and certificates. This number included 243 doctorates and 1,011 master's degrees. Among these were many of the leaders in South Africa and on the continent. No other university compares in this country or on the continent. When it comes to our contribution to South Africa, the audited figures for 2015 indicate the following, Minister. 21% of all South African graduates come from UNISA. That is 1/5 of all South African graduates. UNISA produces more than 20% of all South African doctoral degrees in education and 73% of graduates in teaching and learning support. We produce nearly 25% of all business and commerce graduates, which includes 29% of all accounting and related service degrees, 42% of all business administration, management, and operations degrees, 21% of hospitality and administration management, and 18% of business, economics, and management graduates. We produce almost 22% of communication, journalism, and media studies graduates, 22% of language, linguistics, and literature graduates, 27% of philosophy, religion, and theology graduates, 18% of public management and service graduates, and 26% of social service students. As this portfolio of evidence shows, we are without doubt a major contributor to the South African knowledge economy through our graduates, and we are clearly a national and continental asset. We enroll more than 1/3 of all our education students in our country and the majority of African graduates. Today, we also acknowledge the excellence of our graduates through our annual awards at annual and postgraduate level. As a university, we have a proud recent history that is reflected in the book that our program director mentioned right at the beginning, Minister. This is Degrees of Excellence, compiled by our former registrar, Professor Louis Mulamu. It reads our democratic past through the lens of honorary graduates of our university, especially those who have promoted human rights in South Africa and beyond. It is in many ways a celebration of our democratic thought leaders and intellectual activists whose visionary leadership can earn the respect of UNISA, beginning with our global icon, the late President Mandela. It is a who's who of bold leaders across many fields and discipline in our modern history, from notable women in struggle politics and parliament, Rivonia trialists and prominent justices, to liberation poets, musicians, religious leaders, and researchers. It recognizes the contribution of international figures such as Kofi Annan and our new chancellor. President Mbeki's role as a revolutionary activist and advocate of the African Renaissance. This is eminently and prominently profiled in this beautifully produced volume in which we celebrate UNISA's honorary graduates from 1994 to 2004. We are indeed privileged that our chancellor brings such knowledge, experience, and stature to our university. The commemorative volume, Degrees of Excellence, Chairperson of Council, Minister for Education and Training. It captures the spirit of UNISA as a university of the people across the boundaries of race, gender, creed, and nationality, fully committed to social justice as well as intellectual excellence. It also reminds us that the social obligations that accompany rights become even more important in times of transformation. Universities dare not remain aloof when inequality persists and knowledge is lodged in colonial archives. We need to exercise our rights with a strong sense of how the majority has been excluded from the citadels of learning and research. Ultimately, UNISA should deepen its connection with community as a reciprocal knowledge partnership. We therefore take pleasure in launching Degrees of Excellence as the 2017 year opens today. The strides made by UNISA in the past years are the result of the combined efforts of its various stakeholders: council, management, academics, administrative staff, labor unions, students, and everyone else who makes a contribution in one way or another to this institution. But I would like to acknowledge the outstanding role of our past chancellor, Judge Bernard Makhabo Ngwepe, and the various council leadership and vice chancellors who laid UNISA's foundation. I mentioned all of them here who are with us today. Ladies and gentlemen, if we forge common interests as a UNISA family in order to advance knowledge project, I believe that nothing, certainly nothing, can stop us. The installation of our chancellor will simply give us more impetus. In times like these, I am sure I speak for all of us when I say that we are proud to be African. We face the future with bold conviction that UNISA will achieve its bold vision, that is, to be the African university shaping futures in the service of humanity. Nkosi sigelela i-Afrika. Finally, Nkosi sigelela i-UNISA. Thank you. I'll then be requesting Prof. Mulamu to join us here.
Mr. Principal and Vice Chancellor, I'm pleased to hand over copies of the book that I authored. But before I do that, I'd like to thank somebody who was quite central to the completion of this book. It's the late Dr. Johan Brenders, who died late last year. He was quite central in moving the project forward. I'm deeply grateful to him. But I'd like now to offer the book to people who are featuring in the book. Not all of them are here. I am informed by the principal that they will be given the copies in due course. The first one is Dr. DBZ Ntuli. I'm told he's not in. Dr. Mutobi Mutluadze, he's somewhere. I saw him earlier in the day. My dear brother, Dr. Don Matera, not quite certain he's going to be able to walk up here. Next one, another good brother of mine, Dr. Jonas Gwangwa. Another good friend of mine, Dr. Willie Khositsile. I suspect he's not in today. Another good friend of mine who told me off the other day, Sibongile Khumalo. I don't know if Twalandwe, Dr. Mlangeni is here. Yes. Oh, okay. Now, this one is very special for me too because it was under his watch that many of these degrees were awarded. Justice Bernard Makhabo Mwepe. The next one is right behind me, Mukwena, Justice Dikgang Moseneke. I'm not sure I should be doing this. Dr. Thabo Mbeki. In conclusion, all the other, in fact, there is one that we should do. I'm going to take liberties here. And Mrs. Albertina Nonsigelelo Sisulu, the daughter and the daughter-in-law are here. I'm going to hand it over to Lindiwe Sisulu. And before I get carried away, I think I should sit down. Thank you.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I just want to acknowledge also the Chancellor of the University of the Western Cape, who is sitting right behind me here, Archbishop Thabo Mbeki.
Thank you very much, Vice Chancellor, for your academic address, and also Prof. Mulamo for the very special ceremony that has just taken place now. And the next one is I will invite our Minister of Human Settlements to come and stand next to me on the stage. I'll also invite our Chairperson of Council, Sakis Melane, to stand next to her. I'll invite Professor Mandla Makanya, our Vice Chancellor, and I'll also invite our Vice Principal, Teaching, Learning, Community Engagement, and Student Support, Prof. Moche, to come on stage. This time, we will be inviting the people who are receiving awards in the College of Graduates Excellence Awards category for the best results for a bachelor's degree and a 3-year undergrad diploma. And each candidate I call will come onto the stage to receive from our Vice Principal the award and will be congratulated accordingly. College of Law, Holly Thompson Tebraget. Let's put our hands together. Thank you. Our next one within the College of Law, it's a diploma, Vusi Joshua Dladla. Thank you. As you know, UNISA has a footprint around the world. Some could not make it. And under College of Human Sciences, I have Simon Max Medal in absentia. Let's put our hands together for him. And the next one, a diploma under College of Human Sciences, is Gertrude van der Merwe. Thank you. The next one is Mahlape Mohale in absentia. Let's put our hands together. Under the College of Economic and Management Sciences, in absentia, we do have Sky Melissa Gordon. Let's put our hands together. And also in absentia, under the diploma category, Solomon Kumalo. Let's put our hands together. Under the College of Science, Engineering and Technology, a degree category, we have Richard Paul Lehman in absentia. Let's put our hands together. Under the diploma category, same college, we have Nicole Candice Thiessen. Thank you. Under the same diploma category, same college, we have Kudzai Motisi. Thank you. Under the same category, we have Mohammed Ibrahim. Thank you. Under the College of Agriculture and Environmental Sciences, degree category, in absentia, we have Deborah Stanbridge. Let's put our hands together. Again, in a diploma under the same college, we have Helen Michelle. Let's put our hands together, so that they can see, even on YouTube, that we actually acknowledge them. Under the College of Education, degree, in absentia, we have Johin Lorenzen. Let's put our hands together. The same degree category, same college, we have Alison Pillay in absentia. We move on to the College of Accounting Science. Under the degree category, in absentia, we do have Ashley Claire Pays. And we also have Tabiso Ivan Jane. I'll now ask our Minister and our Chairperson of Council and Vice Chancellor to return back to their seats. Thank you very much. And I will ask Professor Labuskaghni to come forward for the next set of awards. And again, it's the only time I'll ask my Chairperson and Chairperson of Council and Vice Chancellor to sit down and stand up again. I'll never have this opportunity again, so I'll invite them to come onto the stage. Thank you very much. We'll also be inviting under this category our Minister of Science and Technology, Minister Naledi Pandor, to come on stage and join. We will be announcing the following categories of people with best results for masters by research and coursework, and they receive the Council Graduate Excellence Awards. And each candidate, likewise, will be invited onto the stage to receive their award. Under College of Agriculture and Environmental Sciences, Sciences, we do have Mr. D.L. Mpaka, Masters by Research. Thank you. Under the College of Accounting Sciences, we do have Ms. M. Lagrange, Masters by Research. Let's put our hands together. And we do have Mrs. S. Malan, Coursework Masters. Let's put our hands together. Thank you. Under the College of Economic and Management Sciences, we have Ms. Alicia Nevers-Neyman, Masters by Research. Thank you. We also have Mrs. Zanelle Monroe. Let's put our hands together. Thank you. We also have Mr. L. Olivia. Thank you. Under the College of Education, we do have Ms. S. Van Tonder, Masters by Research in absentia. We also have Dr. Johanna Katharina Lube, Coursework Masters. Thank you. And under College of Human Sciences, we do have Mr. Calvin Clarence Dutoit in absentia. We also have Ms. M.M. Sneyman, Masters by Research, shared award. Thank you. We also have Ms. Megan Main Baile, Coursework Masters. Thank you. Under College of Law, we have Mr. Pilani Litanda Nendlovu, Masters by Research. Thank you. Under the same College of Law, we have Mrs. Alexandra Tama Budin, Coursework Masters. Thank you. And under the College of Science, Engineering and Technology, we do have Mr. Ralph Farai Moviwa, Masters by Research. Thank you very much. I overheard the minister saying that now that you have greeted her, it's compulsory that you finish the work you started by doing a PhD. Now I'm announcing the following candidates receiving the Senate Graduate Excellence Awards category for best results for an honors and BTech degree and postgraduate diploma. College of Agriculture and Environmental Sciences, Mr. Duan de Freitas, Bachelor of Consumer Sciences, honors. Let's put our hands together. Thank you. College of Economic and Management Sciences, we do have Mr. Jean van Vieren, Bachelor of Commerce, honors in Industrial and Organizational Psychology. Thank you. We also have Mr. Thokozani Mbuti Ntuli, postgraduate diploma in public administration. Thank you. College of Education, we do have Michelle Sunarein, Honors Bachelor of Education with specialization in inclusive education, and that is in absentia. Let's put our hands together. We also have Miss Nikita Coral and Clark, Honors Bachelor of Education with specialization in inclusive education in absentia. Let's put our hands together. We also have Mrs. Nina House, Honors Bachelor of Education, specializing in inclusive education in absentia. We then have Mrs. Karen Lee Mostert, postgraduate diploma, tertiary education. Let's put our hands together. Thank you. College of Human Sciences, we do have Mr. Johan Pretorius, Bachelor of Arts, Honors in Biblical Archaeology, in absentia. We also have Dr. Bekezela Siziba, postgraduate diploma in public health. Let's put our hands together. And the very last in this category, we do have College of Science, Engineering and Technology, Mr. Christian Johannes Harting, Bachelor of Science, Honors in Mathematics. I'll now ask our minister, thanking her for her role, to return to her seat. Thank you very much. Let's put our hands together. I'll also ask Prof. Moche to rejoin us again. We'll now call upon our Minister of Education, Dr. Blade Nzimande, to come on stage. Here we'll be presenting the University of Maryland University College, which is in collaboration with UNISA. And after negotiation and discussion between the University of Maryland University College, UMUC, and the University of South Africa, a cooperative agreement was signed between the two institutions in 2012, in which both parties expressed their desire to cooperatively offer UNISA colleagues the certificate in technology in distance learning and e-learning from the UMUC, while at the same time pursuing Masters of Education in Open and Distance Learning, MED in ODL, Open Distance Learning at UNISA. The program was developed in response to a growing challenge at UNISA to advance excellence, innovation, and leadership in open distance learning, teaching, learning, and research. The program will contribute to UNISA increasingly and has been acknowledged internationally and in the national context. Now I'll be calling upon the following to receive the certificates. Professor T. Dean, College of Law, Criminal and Procedural Law. Thank you. Thank you. And I'll call upon Professor R.W. Maladzi, College of Science, Engineering and Technology, Mechanical and Industrial Engineering. Thank you. I'll call upon Professor S.J. Johnston, College of Science, Engineering and Technology, Mathematical Sciences. Thank you. Now I'll call upon Dr. Sindile Ngubane Mokiwa, College of Graduate Studies, Open Distance and Learning Institute. Thank you. I'll call upon Dr. Dennis Ikpe, College of Science, Engineering and Technology, Mathematical Sciences. In absentia, let's put our hands together. I'll call upon Dr. Ingrid Marais, College of Human Sciences, Anthropology and Archaeology. Thank you. Last but not least in this category, I'll call upon Mrs. Veronica Mkabela of UNISA Press in the Marketing Division. Thank you. Whilst we remain in the same form, now we're moving to Apex Accelerated Professional Excellence Awards for full professors were launched in 2008 to acknowledge and incentivize full professors who demonstrated consistent, meritorious performance in their positions for a period of at least 5 years. The rationale for instituting the Apex Awards for the full professors was that professors form the core subject matter expertise in the university and serve as role models and mentors for the academic employees, and they should therefore be acknowledged and affirmed for their role. And since 2015, the prestige of the Apex Awards has been elevated by increasing the minimum requirements to include, among others, an NRF rating of at least C1. Now, 2015 Apex Awards goes to Professor Laureate Pretorius of College of Graduate Studies. Thank you. Award for 2016, Professor T.A. Dube. And we shouldn't forget that he's in mathematics. Solve for X. We do have Professor M. Kelly Lowe. In the College of Law. Thank you. In absentia, we do have Professor C. Lombard. Let's put our hands together for him. Again, in absentia, we do have Professor K. Ratele. And Professor M. Sidat, in absentia. Now I'll ask our minister to return to his seat together with the Vice Chancellor and the Chairperson of Council and Professor Moche. Now, that moment, that hour is upon us. I will now be calling upon our much celebrated musician. I'm sure it's to ease up things in order to heat up things. And that is none other than Ringo Madlingos. So I'll call upon Ringo to come on stage. Thank you.
Molweni. Siyabulela.
Ready?
Hey, you feeling now? Uyazi batini na batulizela batunantanulwa abona ungabari diva dingazo bachiri aringafunani gauri aritoni pani Janio Bangatini na Kotizondo Iapela mama Editi Bodwe Janio Bangatini na Utando Luzongova Yengitile Uyashiye Gandota Uzauti mama kubanina Uti tata kubanina Teko mtungono kunawe Awitepina Liwenu kama mueta pili Kaubata Usige wataba Bonwe Kujani yo Bangatini na Mami apela nditingonyo Bangatini na Uchando luzokoba Ayuba feeling now What's babari Are you Yes, we need that message today in South Africa for our brothers and sisters from other parts of Africa, because we are one in Africa. And we believe so that we have to see Baboni I love you, my brother. I love you, my sister. You are. I am because of you. Masibamba ngesandla, masibamba oh yo, sibaboni se, oh masibanye, oh masibamba ngesandla, sibaboni se, oh masibanye, banye, kushala kushala. Yes, this next song here, thank you very much, is for His Excellency, Udokotela Thabo Mbeki. You know, we are talking about the rulers that Plato talked about when he said that he proposed actually that, you know, in his republic that all the prospective rulers should undergo rigorous testing and education for 50 years to ensure that only the smartest and the most experienced ones become the rulers. And I think you get in there just like Siabule cool, and this one is inaugurated.
Man, destined to live because we have the brains in Africa. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That was a wonderful rendition. Thank you very much, Ringo, and your band. Let's put our hands together again. Without any waste of time, now that moment and that ceremony commences as I invite our Principal and Vice Chancellor, Professor Mandla Makanya, and our Chairperson of Council to ascend the stage and perform their duty.
Thank you so much, Dr. Figeni. So as the Chairperson of Council stands here, my duty will be to go and get our Chancellor-elect for the normal process that is now about to follow. So I'm doing just that.
Inkosi masithambi isixaka sivumile abantu bakuthi ndizotshayelela ndizosusa izigawu phambi koba ingqangalala ithethe phambi koba inhloko yenyoka ibhekisa bebabini abebathathu ndithetha ngenkokhelo ezalwa ke zalali ndizalwa kuzo edutywa bongadutywa umuntu aziduba ngokwakhe ngugqirha Mvuyelwa Thabo Mbeki tata dikhahlela kuwena kutamkhulu kwenjenje Dlamini Nomane Fakati Jama kaSijadu zize lemnyama lenkomo zalo Tshana wasebasuthwini tata khulula ibhatyi kusekhaya apha Dlamini, welcome to the University of Africa. I say UNISA, University of Africa, madoda mahle. Bathi xa bethetha ngaye, bathi he is the greatest son of the soil. The guillotine of wars, the fertilizer of peace, a former president who's current. Nani kuni bafundi fundani ulwazi ke sisinyanya sidla amazimba ayisukane madoda bafundi nani sifundiswa imfundo kwingqondo zenu ulwazi lukuzenzo zenu imbewu nikwe nina tyalani ulwazi chumisani imvisiswano yakhani isizwe ncedisanani manyanani qhamani niqala intyatyambo zohlobo qamelani ngoqamatya lasukela shukuma igazi lomntanyo mthonyama zizi siyazingca ngawe iAfrika uyakuthanda manya yatshela emboleni imboki terham yo.
Ladies and gentlemen, may we give a one round of applause again to our Chancellor before I start. Ladies and gentlemen, I now have the honor to inform you that in terms of the Higher Education Act of 1997, and the Standard Institutional Statute of 2002, the Council of the University has appointed Dr. Thabo Mbeki as the Chancellor of the University of South Africa. For the University of South Africa, its broader community, the country at large, and advocates of the Renaissance of Africa, Monday, the 27th of February, 2017, will go down in the annals of history as a momentous occasion for the university. Posterity will attest that on the day, staff, students, and friends of the university descended on the Z.K. Matthews Great Hall at the university's main campus, named after one of the reverend stalwarts of the struggle of liberation, to welcome into the UNISA community another great son of the soil, struggling giant, and a towering African intellectual. This inauguration of His Excellency Thabo Mbeki as the Chancellor of UNISA represents a turning point in history, marked by the convergence of great minds and statures, track record, intellectual prominence, and mutual commitment to the rebirth of Africa, of two undisputed African powerhouses. One, an outstanding African intellectual giant, and the most recognizable 21st century proponent of the African Renaissance, as well as a key figure in the formation of African Union and New Partnership for Africa's Development, NEPAD. The other, the largest African university, which is repositioning itself as the leading African university that is Africa-focused and Africa-centered. Hence its vision statement to be an African university shaping futures in the service of humanity. In Thabo Mbeki, UNISA could not have asked for more qualified, more committed, more dedicated, and more suitable, iconic, potent symbol in driving the African agenda. This is particularly true regarding Africa's rightful place in the knowledge development space. Indeed, there is no time, no platform more apt to demonstrate Mbeki's commitment to the African cause than his seminal speech on the occasion of the adoption of South Africa's first democratic constitution on the 8th of May, 1996, in which he declared, amongst others, that I owe my being to the hills and the valleys, the mountains and the glades, the rivers, the deserts, the trees, the flowers, the seas, and the ever-changing seasons that define the face of our native land, I close quote. Born on the 18th of June, 1942, Thabo Mbeki grew up in Idujwa in the Eastern Cape. An early political activist, he joined the ANC Youth League in 1956. He was elected the Secretary General of the African Student Association in 1961. For participating in a student strike in 1959, the young Mbeki was expelled from Loveday High School and to sit for matriculation examination at St. John's High School in Umtata. 2 years later, he passed his British A-level examination as a South African Committee of Higher Education Student Trust based in Johannesburg. University followed in 1962 when the young Mbeki left South Africa for Sussex. When he majored in economics, obtaining his master's degree in 1966. In 1969, the ANC sent Mbeki to the Soviet Union to study politics and undergo military training. He joined the staff and the ANC headquarters in Lusaka, Zambia in 1971. 4 years later, he was co-opted into the National Executive Committee, which is the NEC, of the ANC in 1985. He was elected to the NEC during the ANC conference held in Kabikwe, Zambia. Mbeki also served as a political secretary to the president of the ANC, Oliver Reginald Tambo, and was also deputy secretary of the Organizational Revolutionary Council, in addition to heading the ANC's Department of Information and International Affairs. While in exile, Mbeki played a vital role in maintaining contact between the ANC and the leadership of the anti-apartheid movement inside South Africa. He then led the ANC teams in secret contacts with representatives of apartheid regime and later brought his skills to service of the negotiation which ended the apartheid rule. In 1994, Mbeki was appointed the first executive deputy president of the Republic of South Africa, serving under President Nelson Mandela. He was elected president of the Republic of South Africa in 1994 and 2004, respectively, and served until he resigned in 2008. As President of the Republic, Mbeki presided over the longest period of economic growth in South Africa since the World War, championed poverty education reduction program, and the rationalization of South African economy. He led the successful campaign for South Africa to host the 2010 FIFA Soccer World Cup. Mbeki remains a vigorous champion of the empowerment of women. Inspired by the earlier generation of the Pan-Africanists, Mbeki rekindled the vision of the African Renaissance and thus placed Africa on the global agenda. In 2002, he served as the founding chairperson of the African Union together with other African heads of state and government, and he joined the establishment of NEPAD and also initiated the establishment of the India-Brazil South Africa Dialogue Forum. He contributed to and led many of Africa's initiatives to end various conflicts on the continent, including Liberia, Cote d'Ivoire, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Lesotho, Zimbabwe, the Comoros, and Sudan. Since leaving office, he has, at the request of the African Union, led 2 panels mandated to help Sudan to consolidate peace and resolve its various challenges. He also chaired the AU-UN high-level panel on illicit financial flows from Africa. In 2010, he established the Thabo Mbeki Foundation and the Thabo Mbeki African Leadership Institution, both focusing on the achievement of the goals of the African Renaissance. President Mbeki is recognized throughout Africa and in the world as an influential intellectual and a policymaker and a leading mediator. He has won many awards to acknowledge his contribution to human development. Undoubtedly, such a remarkable journey that has left permanent footprints in history is one that fits in well with the strategic intent of UNISA, which is embarking on its own journey of transforming and repositioning itself as an African university. Who will be better suited than this foremost and tried and tested proponent of African Renaissance to help UNISA navigate the trials and tribulations of the journey of reimagining and redefining itself. It is he, after all, who spoke so eloquently on this topic during his address to the late President Fidel Castro and others at the University of Havana, Cuba, on the 27th of March 2001, when he said, "We speak about the need for an African Renaissance, in part so that we ourselves and not others determine who we are, what we stand for, what our vision and hopes are, and how do we do things, what programs we adopt to make our lives worth living, who we relate to and how." I close quote. Nothing could resonate more with the vision of UNISA, and with Mbeki on UNISA's team, we can confidently proclaim nothing can stop us now. I now request the Vice-Chancellor, Prof. Mandla Makanya, to perform the investiture. No, not yet. Let's repeat again a round of applause, please. His Excellency, Dr. Thabo Mbeki, whereas the Council of the University, in accordance with the University Act, has appointed you as the Chancellor, and whereas you have accepted, it is now my privilege to announce that you are now invested with the authority, the rights and privileges connected with the office of the Chancellor of the University of South Africa.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is now my honor to request our Chancellor to present his address. Mr. Chancellor.
Thank you very much. And thank you very much, Chairperson of Council. Honorable Blade Nzimande, Minister of Higher Education and Training, and other ministers. The Vice Chancellor did me a favor by acknowledging all the important people who are here. So I endorse that acknowledgement. I had noticed, Vice Chancellor, that you hadn't seen the president who was then sitting immediately behind you. I mean the Archbishop Makhoba. And I don't know if I trust him behind my back. Yeah. But thanks, Archbishop. I'd also thought I was very glad that Louis handed over these books because it enabled us to acknowledge these other important people who are with us today. That includes our leader, Andrew Mlangeni. You know, I always try to avoid him because, as you know, he is chairperson of the Integrity Commission of the ANC, so I don't know what he would say about my integrity. But I was also glad to see these eminent artists of ours who received these books as honorary doctors. But Chairperson of Council and members of Council and Vice Chancellor, members of management, Chairperson of Senate and the academic staff, the President of the SRC and student staff and workers, distinguished guests, comrades, friends, ladies and gentlemen. I'm indeed privileged to take this opportunity to convey my humble appreciation of the honor extended to me by the community of the University of South Africa, led by its council, as it elected me to serve as the Chancellor of this eminent center of learning, of teaching, and of research. In this context, I'd like to salute my immediate predecessor, the Judge President Bernard Mwepe, and thank you very much, Judge, for being present here today. whom I have been honored personally to observe over a number of years as he served with rare distinction and dignity as Chancellor of UNISA. And throughout these years, I've been conscious of the fortune UNISA has had that it had him as its Chancellor, given his standing as one of our outstanding lawyers and jurists, a co-architect of our critically important post-apartheid constitutional order, and a senior member of both the South African and the African continental judiciary. I take this opportunity to pledge that I will try to do my best to honor the tradition of chancellorship that he has pioneered. Always mindful to rely on his tutorship to do the right thing correctly to serve this university and our system of higher education as a whole. And in this regard, among others, I will keep in mind the advice he gave when he said, be interested in the affairs of the university, obviously within limits as a mere titular head. I hope you all will bear that in mind, that I'm only the titular head. And he said, UNISA is a big institution and has many activities, so it is always rewarding to attend as many as possible. In this way, you will be part of the university community, understand its objectives, hopes, and even fears or concerns. And he said, when I came, I asked that the Chancellor's addresses not be too long at graduations. And I hope, he said, this remains because our graduates' minds are on the conferment of their degrees and they want to go home and groove, unquote. On the 18th of June 2003, when I addressed the National Assembly as it considered the budget vote of the presidency, I said, and I quote, that we're pleased that we've now established a higher education presidential working group that brings together the vice chancellors of the universities and the technicons, such as they were then, and members of cabinet chaired by the president. And said the critical challenge for this working group is to contribute to the development of a shared agenda for the transformation of the system of higher education and to reposition the institutions in this sector to play a more meaningful role in the transformation of our society, unquote. And accordingly, the agenda of the working group included the very challenges which have more recently resulted in open political struggles about such relevant matters as the financing of the universities, providing for the higher intakes of students with special reference to black students from poor families and disadvantaged schools, and the expansion of the pool of university teaching staffs, bearing in mind the need to address the challenges of non-racism and non-sexism in this context, bearing in mind the curriculum development thus to Africanize teaching in our universities, improving research and the production of new knowledge in our universities, focused on the imperative to expand the intellectual cadre and knowledge which would help our country and continent more effectively to address our multidisciplinary challenges, and finally streamlining the interaction between the government and academia. And in that context, I recall that after a number of meetings of the working group, a ministerial subcommittee, which included the president, prepared and circulated a discussion document entitled The Challenges Facing Higher Education in South Africa, which was dated the 1st of June 2005. And naturally, this provoked a response from our leaders in higher education, some of which contested the views expressed by government. And writing of this report in an article published in 2007, Ms. Piyushi Kotecha, then CEO of the Southern African Regional Universities Association, said that the sense of urgency for higher education is clearly conveyed in a remarkable discussion paper released by the government in June 2005. And she said the document raises a sustained critique of the sector, accusing its leadership of being, quote, too close to the coalface, unquote, to understand the critical role that the university needs to play in society. And she said the gist of the critique offered on the universities is that we are collectively and individually underperforming, that we may well not be focusing on the right areas, and that the sector lacks self-confidence. It is, in the words of the document, she said, timid. And the document criticizes the role of academics as being too much of trainers rather than that of innovators, unquote. Well, that was 2005. I'm sure much has changed since then. But Ms. Kotecha then posed the question, are we getting a message from government that higher education needs to reconfigure itself once more in order to meet global challenges for excellence in higher education? I'm certain that many of our distinguished participants at this occasion today will recall that in the context of the potted history I've sought to convey, the then Vice Chancellor and Principal of UNISA, the esteemed Professor Dr. Nyameko Pani-Pichana, who is here fortunately with us, wrote an open letter to the then President Thabo Mbeki. And in this detailed and still relevant April 6, 2005 open letter to the President, Dr. Pichana said, among others, that you were right to raise three critical questions about higher education policy in South Africa during your presidential working group meeting the other day. you asked the questions as to whether society was clear enough in its expectations of higher education, whether we know what resources are necessary to produce such outcomes as we shall determine, and finally, whether we are providing resources sufficient to enable higher education to produce the expected outcomes. And he said all of these are critical questions, but higher education can never function in isolation from the challenges society faces. Higher education must be sustained by the goodwill of the society it seeks to serve, and that society must express confidence in its capacity to produce public good and to dream its future. And he said government has a vital role in creating that environment, but its public investment in higher education by seeking and drawing together partners from the private sector and by generating the confidence of the society. And he said, unless we do that, we should never be surprised that Africa does not feature among the 200 best universities in the world. Whatever we may make of the methodology and criteria for so determining this ranking, we cannot but recognize that we are some way from the league of world-class universities. Unquote. I was very fortunate to have found Dr. Pichana's open letter to the President, and therefore his comments which I have just quoted. And taking advantage of what he reported then, 12 years ago, I asked the questions once again today. Is our society, that is South Africa in all of its echelons, is it clear enough in its expectations of higher education? Does it know what resources are necessary to produce such outcomes as it shall determine? And is our society providing resources sufficient to enable higher education to produce the expected outcomes? I suspect that you, dear friends, believe that I have posed these important questions concerning the critical matter of higher education, in part because I have a view about how we should answer them. And I would like to confirm that, indeed, if I'm right in this regard, you are correct in your belief. I do indeed have a view about what the objective and truthful response to these questions should be. But however, I'd like to plead your indulgence that you allow me the space to delay this response. And this is because, as you know, currently sitting is a Commission of Inquiry into Higher Education and Training, chaired by the Honorable Judge Jonathan Heha, who's mandated, among others, to make recommendations on the feasibility of making higher education and training fee-free in South Africa, and having regard to the Constitution of the Republic, all relevant higher and basic education legislation, and so on. I believe that it is correct that we await the report of the Commission of Inquiry, which may very well make recommendations which would address the challenges of higher education, many of which were identified by Dr. Pani Pichana in the open letter to the President that I've cited. And I trust that you will agree with me in this regard, relating not only to the issue of the timing of the response to the important questions we posed in 2005. And that said, I trust that the report of the Commission will also alert us to the imperative to engage the whole nation in a serious discussion about the larger challenge of how we should structure our public expenditures over the medium term at least. This arises from the hard reality that our democratic state continues to be faced with the task to address the very many and detailed challenges centered on what our Constitution demands with regard to correcting the injustices of the past and building the new South Africa. And each of these demands the spending of public revenues in a situation in which objectively the state has finite resources whose quantum is principally determined by the possibility of our economy to produce the new wealth from which these public revenues would be drawn. Accordingly, this means that what is spent to address one social economic challenge constitutes the resources which become unavailable to meet another or other challenges. Necessarily, therefore, the national budgeting process entails making choices, or in other words, ranking the needs which must be addressed with regard both to timing and the volume of resources to be allocated. In this context, I'd like to believe that all of us share the profound hope that the HEHA Commission will indeed succeed to provide the practical answers to the urgent matter of the sustainable funding of higher education and training. And in this regard, I was pleased that the terms of reference of the Commission referred to all relevant higher and basic education legislation, given the objective and critically important interdependence of these two stages of the educational process. And in this context, I would again like to underline that it will be important to understand that inevitably, such higher expenditures on education as the Commission might recommend would necessarily mean the relative sacrifice of expenditure on some other social or economic need or needs relating to the matter of public expenditures. It will therefore fall on our society as a whole to accept both outcomes, consistent with the important observation made by Dr. Panipichana 12 years ago, that higher education must be sustained by the goodwill of the society it seeks to serve. As all of us will understand, this brings to the fore the matter that was raised so long ago as 2005, namely, is our society clear enough in its expectations of higher education? However, I must also mention the absolute imperative our society faces of successfully combating the serious malaise of the illegal and immoral diversion of significantly large quantities of public funds into private pockets through what is clearly widespread corruption. Speaking as the chancellor of the then University of East Africa, at 50 years ago in 1963, our late leader, Mwalimu Julius Nyerere, said that, for let us be clear, the university has not been established purely for prestige purposes. It has a very definite role to play in development in this area that is East Africa. And to do this effectively, it must be in and of the community it has been established to serve. University of East Africa has to draw upon experiences and ideas from East Africa, as well as from the rest of the world. And it must direct its energies particularly towards the needs of East Africa. And he said it must work against prejudice of all kinds, searching always for that elusive thing, the truth. And yet it must be realized that we are in a hurry. We cannot just think and debate endlessly the pros and cons of any decisions. We have to act. We have to tackle our problems now, unquote. And only 2 years ago, in 2015, more than half a century after these comments by Julius Nyerere, the Dakar, Senegal, first African Higher Education Summit on revitalizing higher education for Africa said that African higher education institutions shall commit themselves to the pursuit of excellence in teaching and learning, research and scholarship, public service, and provision of solutions to the development challenges and opportunities facing African people across the continent. And for its part, our National Development Plan says that, quote, that higher education is a major driver of information and knowledge systems that contribute to economic development. and said, however, higher education is also important for good citizenship and for enriching and diversifying people's lives. And said universities are key to developing a nation, and they play three main functions in society. Firstly, they educate and train people with high-level skills for the employment needs of the public and private sectors. And secondly, universities are the dominant producers of new knowledge, and they critique information and find new local and global applications for existing knowledge, and that South Africa needs knowledge that equips people for a changing society and economy. And then the plan says that thirdly, given the country's apartheid history, higher education provides opportunities for social mobility. It can strengthen equity, social justice, and democracy. In today's knowledge society, higher education is increasingly important for opening up people's opportunities, unquote. I've cited these comments about the vital role of higher education in the effort to achieve Africa's development imperatives, to emphasize the point with which I agree, that everything should indeed be done in our country to ensure that this sector discharges its responsibilities in a sustainable manner. It is in this context that we must express our appreciation and understanding of the actions taken by our students in the context of their Roads Must Fall and Fees Must Fall campaigns, without approving the completely unnecessary and counterproductive violence and destruction of university property which occurred during these campaigns. And needless to say, the student movement and our society as a whole must decisively turn their backs on the forms of protests rooted in the logic of cutting off one's nose to spite one's face, as illustrated by a plethora of incidents in which we burn down clinics to demand better health care, or destroy lecture rooms because we want free education, or lay whole schools to ruin because we do not like a proposed municipal or provincial boundary. However, before I conclude, I will return to this matter of student activism in the context of our national historic tasks. I would now like to advance some general propositions. One of these is that I hold firmly, as has indeed been indicated, to the view that as Africans we have a shared responsibility to strive continuously, whatever the challenges, to achieve the renaissance of Africa. As all of us know, literally the word renaissance means rebirth. For us as citizens of Africa, of which South Africans are a component part, that renaissance means eradicating the legacy of centuries and perhaps a millennium of a demeaning European perception of Africa and Africans, as well as the stubborn material and subjective consequences of slavery, of imperialism, of colonialism, of neocolonialism, and even the misrule that we ourselves are responsible for. And the eradication of that legacy necessarily means the corollary possibility to construct something new, so that as Africans we define ourselves according to our image of ourselves, exercising our inalienable right to self-determination. Thus would we, among others, visualize our continent as one at peace within itself and with the rest of the world, free to determine its destiny, internally empowered to allow the people to govern, to put in place programs to eradicate the scourges of poverty and underdevelopment, to define the African identity through respect for our history, our languages, our cultures, and our arts, and to show Africa as secure, Africa's place as an equal among the nations and continents. It is the achievement of all this and more which would contribute to Africa's renaissance. In the context of everything I've just said, I must express my grave concern at events which took place in this city last week in the context of what was reported as an anti-immigrant march. In this context, I want to say thanks a lot to Ringo Madlingozi for what he said. He said now in the songs that he rendered. As South Africans, we should never forget the enormous sacrifices that were made by the sister peoples of Africa to help us achieve our liberation, and cannot now behave in a manner that treats other fellow Africans who are now resident in our country as enemies or unwelcome guests. And neither should we commit the offense of viewing or characterizing the African migrants in our country as criminals. When our communities discover or suspect criminal activity in their areas, regardless of the nationality of the alleged criminal or criminals, they must report this to the police service. And the police service itself has an absolute obligation to follow up on these community reports, thus to avoid the people taking the law into their own hands. And all of us know that our country faces many socioeconomic challenges, such as poverty and unemployment. Not even one of these problems can or will be solved by attacking the fellow Africans who have joined us as migrants. And those who organize and participate in these attacks, which must stop, should know that there is absolutely nothing revolutionary or progressive or patriotic or acceptable or of service to the people in what are in fact criminal activities. Earlier, I detailed some objectives we must pursue to achieve Africa's renaissance. I believe that it is obvious that none of these can be achieved without the determined, the sustained, and committed input of the African intelligentsia. And put simply, this means that the African universities, including UNISA, have a special responsibility to strive to occupy the front trenches in terms of the production of ideas and knowledge of cadres and activists who will drive Africa's effort to realize that renaissance. It is exactly in this context that the UNISA vision, as indeed the chairperson of council has mentioned, towards the African University in the service of humanity. It is in this context that this assumes particular importance. And I'm certain that many of us present here today will recall the important statements made by the Vice Chancellor and Principal here, Dr. Professor Mantla Makanya, during his investiture in 2011 concerning this important matter of being an African university. And he said, when it comes to Africanization, the development of globally relevant education is particularly important because the negation and discounting of one's humanity, contexts, peoples, creativity, inventions, technologies, languages, sciences, achievements, and struggles is antithetical to the development and denudes lives of their dignity and existence. And he said Africanization is about engendering education that is completely relevant within the context in which UNISA exists and in which it provides education. And this implies that while UNISA will remain committed to the diversity of knowledge systems evolving and deriving from the global context and global communities of knowledge, Africanization will foreground its ethos, work, and praxis. And he concluded that Africanization thus constitutes one of the key ontological expressions of UNISA's culture, unquote. And I'm sure, as all of us would know, or at least guess, there has, of course, been much discussion among the educationists about exactly what this Africanization means, and therefore what would constitute an African university. For instance, in an instructive 2010 paper, some reflections on the Africanization of higher education curricula, UNISA's own Professor Paul Prinsloo cites Joseph Mensah as having said, among others, that, quote, that the African curriculum should in the first place arise from and contribute to African canons of knowledge and praxis, not as exclusionary and opposing Western canons, but as equally worthy and scientifically rigorous and valid. And that an African curriculum has to do with the manner in which the curriculum encourages students to apply their learning to the unique challenges they face in their local communities impacted by global challenges. How does an African curriculum allow students to use a language of possibilities, growing out of cultures of blaming and dependencies to become active participants in pedagogies of rage and hope, of critique and possibility? And for his part, an emeritus professor, Jones of the University of Sierra Leone, said in 2004 that the division between the privileged and the underprivileged in Africa has resulted in social and political instability, which is bound to continue as long as a significant section of society is left out of the full participation for and enjoyment of the benefits of development. And he said, what then are some of the challenges that our academics must face if they are to fulfill their role in the surrounding society? They are to produce men and women who, in addition to their particular skills as scientists and engineers and teachers and social workers, as priests and artists, who must be sufficiently aware and committed to eradicating the social scourge. And he said, our aim in teaching should be to produce men and women who are both critical and creative. Our students should be encouraged to be thinkers and doers rather than accumulators of facts and received knowledge. And said this must be so if they are to be instruments of change, working towards the realization of a just and consequently a stable society. I believe that the point made by Professor Jones, that the African University should encourage students to be thinkers and doers rather than accumulators of facts and received knowledge, is very important because it speaks to the challenge for our universities to educate the change agents, the producers of new knowledge which Africa needs. And as educators among us know, the very concept to be educated, as it applies to university graduates, surely means the acquisition of the vital capacity rationally to question established truths, rather than being merely accumulators of facts and received knowledge. If I may, in this regard, I'd like to cite the eminent scientists Albert Einstein and Niels Bohr, outstanding creators of new knowledge in the 20th century and winners of the Nobel Prize in the sciences. And Einstein said, the important thing is not to stop questioning. Curiosity has its own reason for existing. One cannot help but be in awe when he contemplates the mysteries of eternity, of life, of the marvelous structure of reality. It is enough if one merely tries to comprehend a little of this mystery every day and never lose a holy curiosity. And he also said a very famous statement that whoever undertakes to set himself up as judge in the field of truth and knowledge, is shipwrecked by the laughter of the gods. And said, interestingly, education is what remains after one has forgotten everything he learned at school. And Niels Bohr advised that the opposite of a correct statement is a false statement. But the opposite of a profound truth may very well be another profound truth. In his 2011 investiture address, Vice Chancellor Makanya cited comments which had been made by Professor Paul Zeleza, in which he said, "I dream of a truly decolonized, democratized, and decentralized African universities that are autonomous yet accountable, committed to the pursuit of intellectual excellence yet rooted in their communities, effectively managed internally, yet working closely with all stakeholders. Universities that are Africanized in their staffing, in their values, in their pedagogy, in their epistemologies, and instructional languages, yet are capable of competing globally, contributing to the global pool of knowledge, and responding quickly and effectively to global changes and emerging local needs. Universities that attract students and faculty from across the continent and the diasporas, and that participate in extensive academic exchanges with universities in other parts of the world. Universities, therefore, that provide inclusive education," unquote. In 2010, I was privileged to address a summit meeting of African student leaders who had asked me to speak on the topic, the role of Africa's student leaders in developing the African continent. On that occasion, I referred to comments made by the Ghanaian novelist and thinker, Aikwe Arma, who had said during the same year, 2010, that to wake up from the spell of Eurocentrism and remake our society and our continent, Africans will have to retrieve their suppressed ability to conceive of our wholeness in both spatial and temporal terms. And he said we can begin doing this by re-articulating our dismembered society and remembering our suppressed history, our philosophy, culture, science, and the arts. And for this awakening, all necessary intellectual information, he said, exists here and now, though in scattered form. And it says it requires the work of groups of determined researchers to bring it together, to process it, and to make it widely available in forms accessible to all, these being the requisite preparations for Africa's intellectual awakening. And unquote. I then went on to say to the African student leaders, and I repeat this today, addressing more than the students, the regenerated African university must be the principal driver of that intellectual awakening, which awakening will empower the peoples of Africa to remake our societies and our continent. And I said, you, our student leaders, and the students you lead, must, through your actions, place yourselves among the principal architects of the new African university. And I think that's the task of our students. And I said, were you to succeed in this historic task of the renewal of the African university, with the benefits that would flow from this, all of us would rise and sound innovation that would reverberate across the oceans, proclaiming that you, our student leaders, had succeeded to lay the foundations for Africa at last to rebuild Carthage. More than 2 millennia after the Roman Empire, the Roman senator Cato the Elder, declared that it must be destroyed. And with its destruction, that Africa must be attached to the rest of the world as a helpless appendage, unquote. And thus it is that the historic and therefore strategic task we face as a university community, as this university community, is to join hands as a council, as management, as professors, as lecturers, researchers, students, workers, together to respond to the call made by Aikwe Arma to wake up from the spell of Eurocentrism and remake our society and our continent. And I thank you very much for your attention.
Ladies and gentlemen, as we settle down, I think I'm speaking on your behalf that having heard the address of our new chancellor, that the council of the university community at large, that is constitutive of its staff and students, its alumni, and everyone else who's gathered with us here at the ZK Matthews Great Hall will be saying to themselves, who presents a congratulatory address after having heard the Chancellor? Let me say to you that it is none other than the leader of higher education in our country, that is our Minister of Higher Education and Training, Dr. Bongosi Blaine Zimande. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Makanya. Your Excellency, Mr. Chancellor, sir, our former President, Thabo Mbeki, my cabinet colleagues, Ministers Sisulu and Pando, former ministers who are here, members of Parliament, Professor Makanya, the Principal and Vice Chancellor of UNISA, and Mr. Simelane, the Chairperson of Council, and all other university officers who are here, Archbishop Makhoba, Deputy Vice Chancellors, esteemed guests and students, members of the Diplomatic Corps, and thank you, Mr. Chancellor, for doing what you did. I also wish to say I endorse your endorsement of the acknowledgements that was done to all who is here. Indeed, there are very many distinguished South Africans who are here. As I'm sitting there, I'm saying to myself, it's good to be a South African. It is indeed a great honor to me to congratulate Dr. Thabo Mbeki on this occasion of his inauguration as the Chancellor of the University of South Africa. In accordance with the Statute of the University of South Africa, the Chancellor is elected and appointed from nominations by members of council, staff, students, and the convocation to this position. I wish to thank former President Thabo Mbeki, despite his many commitments that he has, for accepting this responsibility of being Chancellor of our largest university, not only in South Africa, but in the continent. Through his nomination, UNISA has recognized former President Mbeki's vast contributions to our country and its people, most notably in the area of leadership, intellectual discourse, philosophy, and the very identity of the society he continues to serve. Former President Thabo Mbeki has distinguished himself in many, many respects. And I want to say is that despite whatever differences we might have had, since I've known you from 1986 in Sweden, in Bommersvik, I want to say without fear of contradiction that you're one of the greatest intellectuals produced by our movement. Not only by our movement, but by our country and by our continent. Also, one thing I must confess that I have admired in you is your stamina. Minister Sisulu, I won't take all the time. I promised you I'm going to be very brief, but I can't resist this one. In 1996, one of the outstanding clauses, few outstanding clauses in the constitutional negotiations, was the one on the right to strike or the right to lock out by employers. There were big debates, and even inside the alliance itself. So President Mbeki was asked, he was deputy president then, to chair this alliance meeting, which started at about 8 in the evening and finished somewhere around 4 or 5 a.m. I don't know how many times I dozed off during that night, but he never dozed off even once. And we carried through until we actually reached a common understanding, at least as the alliance, to take a positions to the constitutional negotiation. But I wish to warn you, Dr. Mbeki, that that stamina which I admire, Zanel, I would like that it be reduced now that he is over 70 years. What I want to say also about UNISA is that UNISA is actually the founder of our university system. It was founded in 1873. Basically, every other university here started as a college under UNISA. And in 1946, it exclusively focused from 1946 on distance education. It's making an enormous contribution to the African continent. We, as South Africa, by the way, we ranked amongst the top 10 in the world in terms of proportion of foreign students in our university system. We have just over 70,000 foreign students, of which more than 90%, around 90%, are from the rest of the continent. And one startling figure is that there are 26,000 Zimbabwean students in South African universities. And a large part of those would, of course, be catered for by UNISA, which is something that we appreciate. Also, Professor Makanya, I wish to say that the work also that we are doing in leading from the front in terms of transforming this institution, led in the main by a change management unit in your office, is something that is outstanding, that we would like other universities to follow through. Because what it is doing is to contribute also to the debates around many current issues about higher education, including transformation of curriculum, changes in institutional cultures, and so on. So it is very important that indeed UNISA must lead from the front, because you are 35% of our university system in terms of the numbers of students that are here. We also appreciate the number of very relevant institutes that UNISA has established. Apart from the research chair in development education, you also host the Institute of African Renaissance Studies, Institute for Open and Distance Learning, the Thabo Mbeki African Leadership Institute, the Achimarfeja Institute for Applied Social Policy Research, the Institute for Global Dialogue, Institute for Dispute Resolution, the Wiphold Brigalia BAM Chair, in Electoral Democracy and the Institute of Social and Health Sciences. That is a very important contribution. And clearly also, I'm sure that as you were proudly telling us about your increase in research output, also has got to do with these kinds of institutes that we have established. I also want to use this opportunity to thank UNISA, Mr. Chancellor, for also leading in a very important area in forging relations between itself and some of our TVET colleges, our technical and vocational education and training colleges. UNISA now has got some of its programs, certificates being offered through 4 colleges, thus laying a very important foundation of articulation between colleges and universities, so that students who come out of those programs, if they wish to continue with university, what they had acquired at the college will automatically be recognized by UNISA so that they get credit out of that. Something also that is very important, something that is also very important in actually increasing the prestige of our TVET colleges, because we have a highly skewed system where we have more university students than TVET college students. We are like no other country in the world. Ideally, we should have 4 TVET college students per 1 university student. So we appreciate that. Now, let me close by saying, Mr. Chancellor, yes, I heard you emphasizing that you are a titular head. Largely true. But someone like yourself, we expect a little bit more than that. A little bit more than that. Also to guide broadly this institution intellectually as to actually where it goes. So on behalf of government and my Department of Higher Education and Training, indeed we are very proud today that you are being inaugurated as a chancellor of our largest university in the country. Sikufisela okuhle kodwa zizi Jamas Jat Cubunglash. Ngiyabazi kamazizi ngoba ngizalwa intombi yasemazizini. Siyabonga.
Thank you so much, Minister. Now, as we progress with our program, I guess the chairman of our council is really rearing to go in order to close formally this ceremony. Thank you, Mr. Simelan.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I won't be long. I know you are very tired. I won't be more than 5 minutes. And I will be focusing on the soft part of it. So the hard part is finished. Ladies and gentlemen, I think you will agree with me that this morning has been a real celebration of all good things at UNISA. I'm not sure how many of you were counting, but I counted about 54 awards that were handed out this morning. And even a university of the size of UNISA, that is a considerable achievement. I want to congratulate you on behalf of the Council, and I hope that this is a start of even greater things for all of you, because I realize that your success will surely be UNISA's success. To all the academics who crossed the stage this morning, I know that your accomplishment will manifest itself in many ways, but importantly, I hope to see it in the enhancement of the UNISA's academic project. It is, however, also important to acknowledge that the many other UNISA staff, academics, professionals, and administrative staff who may not have walked the stage today, but who will also be using their time and expertise to achieve UNISA's goals and of quality and success. And to all of you, I want to recognize your efforts And I'm convinced that as long as we share a common vision and the mutual goals of quality, service delivery, and excellent scholarship, UNISA will succeed in fulfilling its promise. Ladies and gentlemen, can we give them all a round of applause? To the second part of our today's event, of the inauguration of the Chancellor, I say, Chancellor, this is a very important day for us, and on behalf of Council of the University of South Africa, extended management, the staff, and students of UNISA, I want to welcome you to the University of South Africa. I believe that today all Unisans put aside their differences and greet you with a united voice. UNISA is singularly proud to call you its Chancellor, and we look forward to your strategic leadership and direction. To Professor Makanya and his team, I want to wish you a success in 2017. I know that there are several challenges that will need to be overcome, but equally I know that with the collective experience and expertise of your extended management team, issues such as unqualified audits, increased access and throughput rates, heightened research outputs, quality student support, optimal service delivery, good ICT innovation, creativity, financial sustainability, I can name a few. And progressive planning all have been prioritized under your leadership. I have every faith that there will be many successes during the course of this year, given the fact that we've been very fortunate to start this new year with the presence and participation of our Minister of Higher Education in the academic opening and the inauguration of our Chancellor. Minister, we are very cognizant of the demands of your schedule. We sincerely appreciate the time that you have taken to acknowledge the importance of UNISA, its role and its position in the post-school system, generally and higher education sector. I want to assure you that this university and its leadership fully support you and will always be behind you in every direction that you take in shaping the higher education sector. We again appreciate your presence in this institution today. May we give him a round of applause. I want to also thank all the cabinet ministers, the former cabinet ministers, the vice chancellors, and the chancellors of various universities who have graced our function this morning. We understand that this time of the year is crucial to all universities, and your presence today is truly valued. My fervent wish for all of us this year is that the academic year is allowed to progress unimpeded. Important pegs have been planted in the sand to address the constraints highlighted in 2016 by the student movement and many other organizations. We should allow the various endeavors time to take root. That said, I'm not unaware of the importance of education in the growing groundswell for socio-economic equality and the agency of achieving parity of access. But there is also that interesting term which is put on our constitution, which is a progressive realization. And we all have to note it was put there for a specific purpose. Finally, to everyone who participated in this morning and who contributed to the success of this morning's event, I want to thank you all for the effort and hard work. Often we don't see all the hard work that takes place behind the scenes. But I know what has been going on, and I appreciate your professionalism and energy with which you have handled this event. There are many people, including the musical item that was rendered this morning. We really appreciate your support. And Finally, I know that we will be, they will be telling us where we will get our refreshments, but that will only happen after the chancellor, after our new chancellor have performed his first UNISA duty today of dissolving the congregation. But before I do that, I think I will allow Prof. Makanya to say a word. I thank you, colleagues, and wish you well.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairperson of our Council. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the time when I'll be inviting all of you to stand for the singing of the national anthem. I hope that we will all, if we cannot remember the anthem, that the program will help you, because we expect every person who is here to sing with us. It's the pride of our nation. Shall we sing the national anthem? Ladies and gentlemen, I have a special announcement to make, that as we leave this great hall, we will turn left outside the doors, and then go outside, go down the stairs, turn left again. Then you'll find the marquees where we'll be serving some refreshments. This is an African university. Because you are here, we cannot afford to let you go without getting something to eat, to munch, and something to drink. That's what an African home does. Thank you so much. And I would also like to request that as the academic procession leaves the hall, that let us allow our dignitaries and the members of our chancellor's family, together with the honorary degree awardees, as well as those who received the awards today, to follow us, because it will be necessary to take the photographs with our chancellor. And then we'll then be requesting that once you've given them that space, that everyone else shall then follow. Now, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I have a very interesting request to make. It is to say, Mr. Chancellor, it is now time for me to request you to dissolve the congregation.
By virtue of the powers vested in me, I dissolve this congregation of the University of South Africa.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Ladies and gentlemen, member of the press, you are invited for a press conference at the Senate Hall. Members of the press, we are invited for a press conference at the Senate Hall immediately after this. Thank you.
Challenge as many visuals as possible. Every child